Welcome. My name is Taylor Kingman. I'm president of the San Angelo ISD Board of Trustees. First of all, I want to thank all of y'all for being here. One of the things we've heard in the community over the last several weeks has been what the money for Proposition A would go for if it does pass. So yesterday, the Board of Trustees voted 7-0 to allocate the money in our proposed Proposition A to a $2,500 raise to all teachers and a market increase or a 4% increase to all other employees. Our hope is to show our community and staff that we desire to put this money with the people making a difference in our community for children. For my wife and I, San Angelo ISD provides the best opportunity for our children's future. For that to continue, for our children and all the children in San Angelo, we must invest in the people who make that a reality, our teachers and staff at San Angelo ISD. So we have done a lot of mailers and we have a lot of things going out, but I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Moran to kind of go forward in more detail.
Yeah, and I'd like to just say thank you again for being here, and thank you to the Board of Trustees for the transparency and the willingness to step out and communicate with our constituents as to how these funds would be applied if Proposition A passes. I think what we're after here is trust and transparency. And we know that because of inflation and rising costs of things over the course of the past few years, the Board of Trustees is really looking for any mechanism to generate more funds for the district to meet the needs of kids and to be competitive. We want to recruit and retain great people, and we want to make sure that we keep our campuses safe with armed officers on campus. And both of those are a struggle. We know there's a teacher shortage in the state and nation. And it's not a secret that hiring police officers is tough. Each police department around the state is struggling. School districts therefore feel that struggle as well. So this Proposition A going to our community really is the opportunity to give voters and taxpayers the opportunity to consider a way of helping fund schools more effectively by maximizing state funds. And this is really a mechanism to generate more funds from the state without an impact in the overall tax rate for schools. And so we'll open it up for questions at this point.
Mr. Hyde.
Dr. Kingman, the Texas legislature did not fully fund public schools last year because the legislation was caught up in the private school voucher scenario. How has that impacted the budget this year?
So the basic allotment, which is how schools are funded per student, has stayed the same since 2019. So as inflation has increased, the fact that that allotment has not changed has caused us to, this year we did not give teachers any raise, and we actually curtailed our budget by 5% to make sure that we were able to balance our budget. Now 70% of districts in the state adopted a deficit budget. In San Angelo, our Board of Trustees did not want to adopt a deficit budget. We wanted to spend the money that we actually had. And so for that reason, we made cuts and we didn't give teachers raises unless Proposition A passes. The beautiful thing about Proposition A, if it were to pass, is that for the same tax rate we are currently at for this previous year, the state will add an additional $4 million in funding. So the local taxpayer pays the exact same $2 million that they were paying, not per person, but over to the community, the exact same $2 million, and we get an additional $4 million. So that's a $6 million to our budget that would allow for us to make these raises and do the things that the state legislature has not done for us.
If the state legislature comes back and gives you more money next year, will you still look at raises and other things, or is there other priorities now?
We will, if the state traditionally when the state legislature gives more money, they've actually mandated that some of the money goes to raises. And so typically there are things tied to that money that are out of the local board's control regardless. So my guess is that we would continue to, I can guarantee you, we'll continue to invest in our people no matter what money comes in the future. We have 1,800 employees in San Angelo. That's a big portion of San Angelo. So we have to invest in those people. That's good for San Angelo. That's good for us. It's good for our kids.
Dr. Moran, this is part of, I guess, school finance law from the legislature involving the golden pennies and the pennies and the nickels and whatever. It's really convoluted and most people don't understand it. How long have we been denying ourselves these 3 golden pennies you're trying to get? You've been here a year. This is like your first foray into school finance to get more money for the school district. How long has that been available from the Texas legislature, and why do you think we didn't get it, earlier?
Well, the state allows for 8 golden pennies. We call them golden pennies. Really what that means is a place that you can put your tax rate and yield more per penny from the state. And those 8 pennies have been available for a long time. It just depends on the local citizenry and the community as to the appetite to raise the tax rate, because the ballot language is going to say you're voting to increase the tax rate. What the board, and I'll give the board credit, the board in August lowered the debt service rate by 3 pennies so that they could look the public in the eye and say, hey, we're going to ask you to raise this M&O rate by the same 3 pennies, but have the break even, essentially, no overall tax increase. So the pennies have been there. It's just been a matter of timing, and we are at a place now as a community that we're having to dig a little deeper than we've dug before, and look for ways to find revenue that we have not pursued in the past.
So explain exactly what the benefit to the taxpayer is of passing this Prop A and increasing the M&O rate by 3 cents. How much exactly is the state going to match?
Yeah, so when the question was, what does the state do in regard to increase in M&O rate? It's about a 2-for-1. So for every penny that is generated or every dollar that's generated locally, the state will then kick in $2. And the maintenance and operations rate, most people understand, that's really how we operate daily. We pay our payroll, benefits, fuel, food, supplies for classrooms, equipment. But the debt service rate pays our bond indebtedness, and we've got 10 more years to pay that off. And we've got enough in our debt service rate to do that, and do so even though we've reduced that rate by 3 pennies. So the benefit to the taxpayers of SAISD by considering this, and certainly we're not telling people to vote for or against, providing the facts as we should, is that it will generate more money, but it's not local taxpayer money, it's state revenue that is generated that will flow into our district immediately this year if it were to pass.
And as far as timing, one thing that's important is that our INS rate, due to refinancing of our bond and because of the hold harmless that the state provided with the increase in the homestead exemption, all of a sudden there is money there where we can lower the rate and keep the rate, we can lower the INS rate and keep the overall rate the same for our community. So part of the reason the board has not gone for this previously is we didn't have the opportunity to keep the rate the same. We would be increasing the rate on taxpayers in San Angelo. And what we're trying to do now is keep our overall rate the same by using the opportunity of refinancing our bonds and the homestead exemption hold harmless, and being able to actually pay off our debt without and lower that rate and get that money for our M&O budget.
So Dr. Kingman, everyone that has bought a house lately has seen the interest rates are much higher than they were 2 years ago. How did you refinance all of our bond debt to be able to lower it 3 pennies?
We were blessed to refinance our bond debt right before the interest rates went up. So we were looked favorably upon as far as a community, and we were able to refinance that right before the rates went up. So it was, some of it's just lucky timing.
What does that refinancing do when it doesn't change whether it passes or not, does it?
No, our bond payments are set, and our financial advisors schedule that over the next 10 years. We're in close contact with our financial advisors and our counsel on all of this to make sure that it was done ethically and right. And I'm proud of the fact that Our board and our administrative team has really done a great job of keeping us compliant. Our financial department here does a great job. Everything's transparent on the website, and there's nothing to hide. And that's another part of this. I think it's the bigger conversation. It's really about trust. The school district and the board are really doing their best to give this community a chance in a very financially trying time. And so this is an opportunity for people to look at this and learn and make decisions on what they think is best. Everybody will be getting a mailer in the next few days that will have all of the information, and there are QR codes and information there. If they have further questions, we want them to call, because really our job is to educate and then let the folks vote their conscience.
Dr. Kingman, during the budget sessions this year, what was the no new revenue rate for the San Angelo ISD? Do you remember?
Is Dr. Brandon still in the room?
Yes.
Do you remember what the no new revenue rate was?
It was slightly higher than what our 81 cent, I believe it was 82.
82. I don't have that off the top of my head. I believe is that we can find that for you, Mr. Hyde.
So you're saying the no new revenue rate was higher than the tax rate you set?
Yes, sir. That is true.
You
because
actually lowered taxes on your operations side, and you're also lower taxes on the INS side.
So because state funding, that is a true statement, because the way the schools are funded and because of the socioeconomic status of San Angelo, we get some money from the state. About 52 to 53% of our funding comes from the state, whereas 47% comes locally. And so because of that discrepancy, where some districts, they get 80% locally and 20% from the state. Because of that discrepancy, that's where we're able to, the state kicks in and helps us and keeps that rate there.
So this is an actual tax cut. It's not just a tax rate cut that you've already approved at 81 cents approximately. So it's an actual tax cut because you're below the no new revenue rate. And what you're asking the voters to do is to maintain that rate, and you have taken 3 pennies from the INS side, brought it over to the M&O side in order for you to get the state matching funds.
Yes, sir. So our goal is to maximize the amount of funding that comes from the state to our local community. And so by switching from the INS to the M&O, yes, we would optimize, we keep our tax rate the same. It'd be a lower tax rate than the no new revenue tax rate, and it would allow for the state to give us an additional $4 million with the local taxpayer paying the same $2 million. Any other questions?
What does that break down to for teacher salaries on a yearly basis? Can I get, y'all release the numbers, but I was wondering if y'all could just state that in your own words.
So our starting salary for a teacher in our district will get to $50,000 if Proposition A passes. And every teacher, regardless of their longevity, will get a $2,500 increase in their pay.
And if they've had raises before, would that maintain?
Oh, yeah, so from wherever they're set right now, they get a $2,500 increase from that point.
And I'd like to add that if Proposition A passes, you'll see the mid-year pay increases, and that's retroactive. The funds would flow to us from the state immediately, and the board's action last night would be a retroactive contingent motion so that teachers would then receive their pay as if they began September 1. Also, I think it's important just to note that if Proposition A does not pass, then none of this is possible. And so it's important for people to know the facts and, again, to vote yes or no based on what they believe to be the best vote. But the board has set this community up at least with an option if they want to support the measure, to consider it would impact teacher pay, all employees, and armed officers on every campus.
So voting no doesn't increase the tax rate, but it doesn't give the teachers anything either?
That's correct.
Would voting no decrease the tax rate?
Yes. And that's not a secret, and we don't want that to be a secret, because the board reduced the debt service rate by 3 pennies. If and ask the voters to consider increasing M&O by 3 pennies. If the voters vote no, it would be a 3 penny decrease in the M&O rate. And we budgeted conservatively, we budgeted honestly so that this, as if it did not pass. Because our board and our finance department do a great job. We didn't want to overextend ourselves, so we're in a position of being able to operate, pass or fail. But this is an opportunity again to maximize state funds.
Any more questions?
I'd like to say one more thing in closing. And the district would like to remind everyone that October the 7th is the last day to register to vote. Early voting begins October 21st and goes through November 1st. And then, of course, Election Day is November the 5th. We encourage everyone to register and get out and vote, for or against, whatever you decide, but vote.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.